Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name's Katie. I'm a full-time artist and I love to work in mixed media in my sketchbooks. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking all about my art journey, my career and how I became a full-time artist and do the job that I do today. So I had a few comments on previous videos wanting to know how I got to here. And so I also put a Q&A box on my Instagram stories and I got a whole load of questions. So thank you so much if you did put a question in. I did get a lot more than I expected, so if I don't answer your question in today's video, I will be doing another video just like this one where I answer the rest because I don't think I'll get through them all today. I guess it depends how quick I talk. So before I get onto them, I will just mention what I'm doing here in the background as I talk. So I recorded two processes. One is a Patreon original painting where I was painting this blue jay using just Neocolor pastels. And then the second one is a spread in my sketchbook doing lots of different birds using my Ecoline brush pens. So I'm not going to be talking about the process today, but if you did have any specific questions about the art I'm sharing and my technique, then please do pop them in the comments and I'll answer them down there. So onto the questions. They did sort of split into two different topics. So the first topic I'm going to be trying to cover in today's video is all about my job and my career. And then the other ones I've split into like a social media question and art in general about developing my skills and growing a following. So I expect that will be in the second video. But let's start at the beginning. So I'm going to do a brief overview of my career to date and how I became a full-time artist. So I did study art at school and I took that onto doing my A-levels where I went to a sixth form, but I didn't want to do my career in fine art, so I decided to study graphic design. So I have a degree in graphic design and that's sort of influenced my career. So I went on to be a graphic designer. I worked at an agency and I also worked in-house. So basically I designed and artworked lots of brochures and magazines. I also did packaging and signage and a variety of basically just print design. And I worked at quite a few different jobs working my way around from agency and in-house, and I did enjoy it. I really liked being creative, but it got to a point where I was just really burnt out. I was being really pushed and I didn't feel very appreciated. So my mental health was in a really bad place and I'd been doing illustration on the side. I did a few different freelance jobs in the agencies I was working at whilst I was working full time, and I also started my Etsy shop, began my Instagram and my YouTube alongside my full-time job as a designer. And then after the pandemic and after we had bought this house, it got to a point where I was really unhappy and so I decided to make the jump. Now, I always wanted to make the jump. I always have wanted to be a freelance artist and illustrator, but I never actually thought that I would do it because I am very risk averse. The thought of doing it full time and being self-employed was really scary to me. So I didn't actually think I'd ever have the courage. So it was just a few different things that sort of mounted up and meant that I did take the jump, and I'm so happy that I did. I haven't looked back and I'm really, really glad of my career now and how I sort of shaped it to be what I want it to be. Now, I would say that having my career in graphic design and having my degree in that has really, really helped me. When I first took the jump going freelance, I kept on doing freelance work for some of the previous agencies that I had worked with. So I kept in touch with them, I didn't burn any bridges, and so I sort of worked with them as a freelancer doing graphic design and illustration. And having a graphic design degree and a knowledge of Photoshop and InDesign has helped me to I know how to send things to print. I know a lot of things about color. I know how to edit photos. So it's really helpful for me, even though I don't necessarily design anything now. I still have so many different things in my skill set because of that path. So the first question I had was, did I start by doing commissions and how did it work out? Now, personally, I don't love commissions, but that is how I started. I choose not to do them now, or sometimes I'll do a few projects here and there, but generally I prefer to sort of do my own thing. So I did start with commissions. I actually started doing blog headers. I used to have a blog and obviously I was into illustration, so I did do a few like that through Twitter and advertising it on my blog. And those were the first few ones, and then like I said, I did freelance for the different agencies and did a few commissions for them, so they'd come to me with the project, and that was really helpful, especially in the early days. The next question is, what are my different income streams? So I have Patreon as my main one. Then I also do some paid partnerships, so that would be like sponsored posts on Instagram and YouTube, although I don't do them very often on YouTube. Like I said, I do pick up a couple of projects and commissions, then also my Etsy shop, AdSense, so the money I earn from this YouTube channel, and affiliate marketing. There's also a couple of questions about my training. So did I have any artistic training? Do I have an academic background, or did I study at an art school? And did I study art before becoming a professional artist? So I think I covered that in my brief career history. I didn't study fine art or illustration. I decided to do the graphic design route. So I am trained as a graphic designer, but not as an artist. That part is all self-taught. Did I always want to be an artist? And if I wasn't an artist, what would I be? And then another question, which was, if I could choose another career, what would it be? So I was always creative growing up, and I did want to be an animator, and I loved the idea of like working for Disney or Aardman. Then I wanted to be an illustrator, and then I settled on designer just because it felt like more of a steady career path, especially financially. But I think if I wasn't doing art, I'd probably do something that was more care-based. So one of my A-levels was in health and social care, which I absolutely loved. So I did juggle the idea of being a special educational needs teacher. I loved the idea of that and connecting with people through there. So possibly something in that sort of field. The next question was, is there anything that is stressing you out about this job? I think there's ultimately going to be quite a lot of stress when you are self-employed. There's going to be a lot of pressure, and I think that's the thing that stresses me out the most, is the pressure I put on myself, because if I don't do anything, then I won't get paid. And so at the end of the day, it does feel like there's a lot of weight on my shoulders, but ultimately I absolutely love what I do. And so there's like a bit of balance there of trying to manage the stress and also know that this is my dream job, but obviously it doesn't mean that I'm not stress-free. There is a lot of stress because I am having to do everything and I run my business by myself, and it's really difficult trying to wear all the hats and look at it from like a CEO point of view, as well as the actual artist who has to do all of the creating. And that also links into my next questions, which were, how do I juggle between creating art and running a business all by myself? And how do I manage the business side of being a full-time artist? And it is really difficult. I definitely don't have the balance right. One of my resolutions for 2024 was to get a better work-life balance, because I definitely work a lot. I generally work 6 days a week, and that includes working in the evenings as well. But to me, it feels like that's what you have to do when you are building a business, from building it from scratch, and you have to put in that legwork at the beginning. And hopefully I'll be able to take things a little bit slower once I feel like I've got to a point that I've built up the really solid foundation, and then I can let it sort of work for me. And so the juggle is really difficult. I do struggle with like the business side of it. Obviously, I'm a creative. I absolutely love creating art, but without doing all of the accounts, all of the admin, all of the, behind the scenes stuff, I wouldn't be able to do it. So there is definitely a balance that I need. And I obviously prefer just painting, but I can't just do that without having to, edit videos, do social media, do all of that other side, and then also zoom out and see where I want the business to go. I think that's the part that I struggle the most. So in terms of managing, I just try and do my best. I certainly don't have like goals in mind or, like quarterly budgets or anything like that. I don't know where I'm going. And that's probably something that I need to have, because I tend to sort of just go with the flow, which probably isn't the best way to run a business, but I'm not really sure how to tackle that. The next question is, what is a challenge you did not anticipate since being able to create full time? And I think for me, it's just having a lack of time. I am so busy in the week, and I really do fill my time with, creating the art and running the business. And I really didn't anticipate just how much time that would take. Obviously, that is dependent on me, and I want to put the hours in. But I really didn't anticipate that I don't have any sort of downtime. I think about creating art and I think about my business 24/7. And I didn't anticipate that. I thought that I'd have my hours and I'd be able to stop whenever I needed to, which I can do, and I am very flexible. But I didn't anticipate the fact that my brain won't switch off, and I'm thinking about it all of the time and what to do next and what else I can do further. My next question is about clients. So how have I got the clients to be able to make enough to make a full-time income, and how have I found clients / how have they found me? Now, when people talk about clients, I guess they're talking about commissions and like paid partnerships and things, because generally that is a smaller part of my business. But when I started, I obviously had a lot more clients, and a lot of them were made through the agency I used to be part of as a designer, and just having those links were really helpful. So I'd say networking and having those connections was really important for me, and that's how I started. But I think having an active social media presence was really good. Some of my clients also came from Twitter, which I don't tend to use now, but I've also had people who've just found me through my Instagram. They've clicked through to my website and got in touch from the contact form there, and just through my Instagram DMs as well. I tend to not find the clients myself because that's not something I'm actively looking to do, but if it's the right project, then I will take that on, but I don't do any outreach or anything like that myself. Do I have any art friends in my community who also work as a full-time artist? I do have quite a few art friends, but they are online. I have a lot of friends who are designers, but I don't have any sort of full-time artist friends close to me that I can just reach out to. There are obviously a few artists here in the UK that I'd love to meet up with and create with, but locally I'd say I don't really know anyone, and I haven't connected with any artists in my area. Here's a question about my Patreon. So what do you find is people's favourite part of my Patreon, and what gets the most interaction? So that's quite a quick and easy question for me, because I would say 100% it is the live streams and the drawing sessions. I think having that connection and being able to draw together is one of the biggest things that people join for, and it's certainly the one that's the most rewarding for me as well. How did I start monetizing my art in the early days? So it was slow, but I did start with my Etsy shop, and that was the main way I made money from my art, certainly at the beginning. And when I say making money, it wasn't much money. It was still very slow, and I think throughout all of my business so far, it has been slow growth, just getting to a point. It's not been like big ebbs and flows, and I think that's what's made it really sustainable for me to continue. But doing the Etsy shop and then doing like the blog header commissions, that was how I started monetizing my actual illustrations. Am I happy as a content creator, or do I have other ambitions? I absolutely am happy being a content creator. I absolutely love doing what I do. I love being able to decide on what I'm going to create, not being told exactly what to do, not to have all those tiny little amends from clients. I feel so blessed to be able to do this as a full-time job and to have that independence and the freedom to decide what I do. So yes, I'm very happy in where I am, and like I said earlier, ambition-wise, there's not really anything that I tend to work towards. I just happily take things as they come and I go with the flow. Okay, so I had quite a few questions about when did it become a full-time job, what helped me achieve that, what was the watershed moment where it became apparent I could generate enough income, and what the biggest turning point was in becoming a full-time artist. I think it's really difficult because obviously there's never going to be a point where you have all your ducks in a row and you can just go for it, because like I said earlier, I didn't think I'd actually get to that point. But for me, I think it's important to obviously have money behind you, to have your savings, so that was a big one. And I always had savings, but I still couldn't make myself to make that jump. So for me, it was a point of trying to balance that mental health of where I was feeling really, really rubbish, and then still having that self-confidence knowing that I could do it. So it wasn't necessarily a money thing because I wasn't making enough money at that point, but having my savings and my partner, which is a huge factor in being able to go full-time at the beginning, was really important. And I don't want to downplay that privilege, because I think without having my husband as sort of my backup of if I couldn't make enough money that month, I knew the bills would be covered, and we had our savings as well. That was such a big element to that because, like I said, I am risk averse and I wouldn't want to allow money problems to be a factor. So that was something that I really was aware of, and I think that's really important. So for me, it wasn't like I had a set amount of money coming in, which some people do. They work to a point where they can make more money in their side hustle than they can their full-time job. But for me, I wasn't really able to put enough time in to make the money without getting rid of that full-time job. So having the knowledge that I could freelance for the agency and my previous agency as well, whilst I then found my feet with my artist career, was really important. And it's that factor that really helped me to do it full-time. So it has taken a couple of years to get to a point where I'm now earning more than I was in my full-time job, which is amazing. But at the beginning, I certainly wasn't at that point because I didn't think I could get to there without having the hours free. So I hope that makes sense. There definitely isn't like a one and done thing for everybody of when it becomes a viable option, but I think the point of knowing things were coming together and moving in the right direction was just seeing the numbers grow each month. Obviously there's going to be some months where they were lower, but I can see throughout the years of doing this business and going full time that the graph is definitely going up. So I feel like that's how I know that I'm going in the right direction and this was definitely the right career path for me, as well as the fact I'm so much happier. My mental health is much better than it was when I was working for other people, and just having that flexibility of knowing I can take a lunch off and then work into the evening. I can choose to paint something that I want to do it and still make that work for my content is really important. So definitely very happy to be in this career path, and yeah, I feel like my happiness is the biggest factor of knowing that this is the right path for me. There was a question as well about how did I know that, I'm here for good? And I always knew that I could get another job. And that was another thing that really helped me when I did go full time, because if it didn't work out, then I can get another job. I could go back to graphic design or I could do something else. So it wasn't like this is it and I have to make this work. As much as I wanted it to, I also knew in the back of my mind, if it didn't, I can go back to a different job and that's totally okay. Okay, so we're doing pretty good on the questions. I feel like I've managed to fit in quite a lot into this video. There's a few quickfire ones at the end that I'll try and power through. Some of them I've actually answered, so what prompted the career change, so I mentioned that with my mental health. What steps did I take before I launched my Etsy shop, Patreon and YouTube channel? I was posting on Instagram and Twitter, but the main thing was I just did it and I worried later. So when I started my YouTube and my Patreon, I was on maybe 2,000 followers on Instagram. And when I started my Etsy shop, way back in, I think 2011, I was on maybe 500 followers on Instagram. So I think the starting is the easiest point. I don't think you need to wait for a set amount of numbers to launch. I think it's easier to do it the other way around. And like I said, things have grown really steadily. So it's not like I launched and it had to be a really big success. I could grow it slowly and make it more sustainable for me. So in terms of steps, I would say I was just really, really consistent with my posting and really motivated to do it. And yeah, I think consistency, especially with Patreon, YouTube and Etsy. Okay, so maybe not so quick fire, but the last one will be, which is what activity gives me the most profit? And that would be my Patreon. So that covers all of the career questions, and then in the next video, I'll answer the art and social media questions. So I hope that was interesting. If there's something you'd like me to expand upon, please do pop them in the comments and I'll happily answer you down there. Hope you enjoyed watching these pieces come together. A huge thank you to my patrons for supporting me and allowing me to create this free content. And I hope you all have a wonderful creative week ahead. I will see you next Sunday in my new YouTube video. See you later.